And hello, and welcome to another edition of the Ball and All podcast. This is your weekly basketball podcast where we discuss all things that are happening in the basketball world. We do NBA, we do WNBA, we cover the Basketball Africa League, and we do that across the 52 weeks. And this period of the year, we're devoting to the WNBA, where we want to highlight the work that the W does. And so this week we are in the WNBA Finals. It is the Chicago Sun and the Sky and the Phoenix Mercury going up against each other. Rematch of the 2014 finals, where the Mercury did sweep the Sky. That was when Elena Delle Donne was part of the Sky. She had a bit of an injury in that period, but at this time there's a lot of MVPs on the floor. You've got Diana Taurasi, you've got Candace Parker as well, Brittany Griner, who many would have wanted to be the MVP this season. She got beaten out by Jonquel Jones. It is a regular season award, but Brittany Griner in the playoffs has been sensational. We're going to talk about all of that, but before we do that, please remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Ball and All YouTube channel, but you can also follow me on Twitter at Mpho. The details are there at the bottom. You can also follow me on Instagram. Not as keen on Instagram, but we are getting there. So this weekend, everyone, will just give you an analogy. This weekend, we saw before the finals actually started, we saw Deontay Wilder take on Tyson Fury, a massive heavyweight bout between two very good heavyweight boxers. It was tight. It went 11 rounds, and then it went down to a knockout. And that's essentially what this finals is between the Mercury and the Chicago Sky. It's a heavyweight bout with a lot of heavyweights here. I like this matchup because the teams match up well. They match up well. Where their deficiencies, the other team can cover, but these two teams match up well. And essentially, you've got two battles: one in the front court, Brittany Griner and Brianna Turner, with Azurá Stevens and Candace Parker and Stephanie Dawson as well. And then on the other side, you've got on the backcourt, you've got you've got Diana Taurasi, you've got Skylar Diggins-Smith going up against Kalia Copper and Courtney Vandersloot, and obviously you've got the either Ali Quigley coming off the bench against either Sophie Cunningham or Shea Patey. So both teams equally matched up, and that's what Game 1 gave us. Game 1 started on Sunday, but what was interesting about Game 1 is that the team that got to the finals first was a lot more rested, even though the team that played the Game 5 on the Friday, they had to come back and play Game 1 at home. So they had to fly from Las Vegas to Phoenix, and one-day turnaround to start the finals on Sunday. So hopefully the WNBA can sort that out, because Phoenix had to do that. They looked tired. Diana Taurasi had given birth. Her wife gave birth to her partner, gave birth to a baby over the weekend, and then they still had to play Game 1 of the finals. It was pretty awesome. It was pretty good to start. Really good crowds in Phoenix supporting the Mercury, but Chicago Sky were really good. Phoenix looked tired on defense. They weren't moving around. They weren't protecting the perimeter as much as you'd like. And you had Kalia Copper, Candace Parker really truly dominating the Phoenix Mercury. 16 points from CP3, 21 points from Kalia Copper. That was really good. Really good to see. You kind of felt that gave Chicago the advantage, because they've taken the home court advantage away from Phoenix, with 2 games coming up in Chicago where they could close it out. What you then also got then after that was they were out-rebounded. Phoenix were out-rebounded, and like in the series against the Aces, rebounds were kind of telling. If you rebounded more than the opponents, you most likely won the game. It was 91-77 in Game 1. It was really interesting to see how each team were going to try and find that extra oomph. But Phoenix had injuries. Kia Nurse was out, and she's probably out for the entire finals. Sophie Cunningham had a calf strain, and she didn't play. And Sophie Cunningham was a great bench player for them in that Aces series. She kept on giving them that extra energy that they needed whenever the Aces were ahead and something off the bench. So that was just a a tough one because they were tired and they also had a limited roster. Come into game 2 a couple of nights in, Wednesday night, it was last night, and they played a much different game. They were much better on defense. But the first important thing, and I think the one thing that you might say, yes, there's battles in the front court and the back court, and they seem pretty equal. But the Phoenix Mercury have a weapon, a much high quality backcourt weapon and center in Brittany Griner. And to a certain extent, that lays the foundation for their play. This game 2 started with Chicago going a little bit quicker, getting their baskets in, and Phoenix weren't getting it on the perimeter, and they were trying. They really did try to get it going. But how they got the points on the board, they used Brittany Griner. They kept on feeding Brittany Griner. In the first quarter, she got 10 points, 5 from 6 from the floor. You just kept on feeding her while everyone else was struggling to shoot. That backcourt was struggling to shoot threes. But Sophie Cunningham came through towards the back end of that first quarter and second quarter. She actually did start, which was really surprising, but I thought it was a good move. And they just kept on going. The great thing about Phoenix is because they ended up winning in overtime. The win today for Phoenix was whenever they went down, they kept on pushing. They were always behind in the game, and they kept on coming back and leveling. And they were behind twice by more than about 8 points on either occasion. Well, in the first half, it was a little bit more, but in the second half, they were down by about 8 points, and they came back. And they came back with large, massive haymakers from the perimeter, 3-point shots from DT, Dan Charasi, or Sophie Cunningham in the first half, but Skylar Diggins-Smith. The trick to this Phoenix Big Three and what makes Phoenix work is if Brittany Griner is getting her touches, it makes it easier for the others to then be able to shoot from the perimeter. Effectively, it's Griner in the middle and Brianna Turner spacing out onto the wing. You've got Sophie Cunningham on the other wing and DT and Skylar Diggins-Smith on the elbows. Great spacing. If Chicago wants to double, which they did last night, sometimes on Brittany Griner, they didn't all the time, but there were moments where they would come in and double. She'd feed it out. Open shots were falling everywhere else, and was a much better 3-point shooting night for the Phoenix Mercury. But most importantly, even in single coverage, Azure Stevens and Stephanie Dawson can't necessarily match up defensively. There are bodies that you can put on Brittany Griner, but she's got the skill to be able to break single coverage. The only other defender that she struggles with who can stop her is Liz Cambage. It's just unfortunate for the Aces that Liz was slightly injured and not necessarily at 100% in that. So she got to 100%, but you kind of felt like it was a little bit later. If they played this series if they played that series this week, I think we'd have a different team in the finals. But Brittany Griner, very good MVP candidate. This time she scored 27 points. In game 1, her and Brianna Turner could only combine for 27 points and 12 rebounds. This time, Brittany Griner, 29 points. She was really good. Darren Taurasi came in with 20 points. The way they played is that the Phoenix defense got better and better as the game got on, to the point where even in overtime, they then led, and they led until the end. They did lead towards the final minutes of the game, and Chicago came back, but they had the momentum going into overtime, and they pulled it away. Chicago's shots went falling, and it didn't work out. But what happens in this game, and I think this is where this game is going to fall, this series is going to fall, it's going to fall on that fifth man, on that fourth and fifth man. For Chicago, it's Azure Stevens as well as Ali Quigley. For Phoenix, it's Sophie Cunningham. She's starting, or Shea Petty, depending on who's starting, but I'll pick Sophie Cunningham because she's a much better shooting threat, as well as Brianna Turner. If those two get free open looks, which I think they will, going into the series, because effectively the big three of each team, Copper, Parker, Vandersloot, match up really well to Griner, Stiggins-Smith, as well as Taurasi. So it's going to fall down to those and the bench. Dana Evans off the bench, Lexi Brown and Diamond DeShields for Chicago. We've got Shea Petty as well coming off the bench for Phoenix. So it might come down to those players outside of the big three to go through. But if Phoenix going further into game 3 and 4 and 5 in Chicago, Phoenix need to develop early a big front court game for themselves with Brittany Griner. Feed Brittany Griner early, get her going, get her touches, get her playing more, get her feeling the defenses, and get her make Chicago go insular. Whenever Brittany Griner gets the ball, the defenders always try to feel like they need help. That opens up a few spots, and then she can do whatever she needs to do. That's the first thing. Defensively, they need to start work. They need to make the Chicago defense work. So they need to essentially there's a few ways you can do it. It's if you want to do early offense, if you're Phoenix, you go and you let Diana take that three ball. That's the only person who I think Phoenix should allow if they want to do early offense early in the clock to do that. Outside of that, either you get it to Brittany Griner. If you can't, Skylar Diggins-Smith gets the ball. But in that, you need to move the defense. You need to make sure that you get Skylar Diggins-Smith a lane in order for you to. So you need to move the ball around. You need to create screens, get Diggins-Smith into that lane. If you're not going to do that, you move the defense to get an open look for one of the other shooters, Cunningham or Brianna Turner. But you can't necessarily try, because what they were doing in the first half, they would just drive down and just take a three, just jack it up, and you're sitting there going, no, it just can't work that way. Whereas on Chicago's end, they need to let Courtney Vandersloot be Courtney. So pick and roll, bring up Candace Parker, maybe a pick and roll with Candace Parker or with Azurá Stevens. Courtney then will decide once she's beaten the defender or taken the screen whether they switch or whether they try fight through the screen as to what she needs to do. If they switch, you've got the mismatch. And I think they need to play with that mismatch. Brittany Griner is a very good defender, even on point guards, but Courtney Vandersloot is one of the best passers in the game, and she's very good. That's where you need to start. And then on top of that, just like Skylar Diggins-Smith for Phoenix, try to open up lanes for Kalia Copper to get the ball. Use movement to get Kalia Copper on the low block, getting the ball on the low block and doing that. That's going to create a lot of movement. Chicago was stagnant last night. They need to move a little bit more on that. I think to a certain extent they were getting worked on defense and they were tired. And so that's something that you need to try and get them out of, because when they move the ball, they look better and they're much more of a threat. The other thing is when you move the ball, you give open looks to Allie Quigley. Allie Quigley, one of the better shooters of the ball in the WNBA, she will sink whatever ball she gets. And so that's how you can build on that offense for Chicago. Defensively, both teams very good. Defensively, I think Chicago needs to consider just having somebody, because I think they may need to double Brittany Griner a little bit more. Brianna Turner is not an offensive threat to them. So, for instance, whoever's on Brianna Turner can provide the help. And if the ball goes to Brianna Turner, that's fine, because then you're forcing her to make the shot. And if the series goes down to that, I think Chicago will take that 9 times out of 10. It can't go to Taurasi, can't go to Skylar Diggins-Smith, and it cannot go to Sophie Cunningham with time. That's the type of game you need to play. You kind of need to start looking and seeking out mismatches in the game. Brianna Turner is a great defender, but from an offensive perspective, it's not. So you kind of need to force the game that way. And to a certain extent, even for Phoenix, let the centers get the ball. Let Azurá Stevens get the ball. Don't let her get it on the low block. Let her get it higher up. So if it is a pick and roll, let her get it higher up. If she doesn't roll, or force her not to roll, by probably trying to get underneath the screen and have putting a body on her to stop the roll, then that could kind of work. But to a certain extent, Azurá Stevens and Stephanie Dawson to a certain extent, because they're one package essentially again in that center, they need to kind of the pressure put the pressure on them to win the game for their team. Don't let it be Allie Quigley. Don't let it to be Vandersloot. Don't let it to be Candace Parker. What I loved about today is that Candace Parker didn't get a lot of touches in places she liked. That's what you want to do. You want to kind of force them to play longer in the shot clock, because they're very good in transition. They're really good defense. They steal the ball, they move it. Also very good in early offense to kind of catch you off guard. But when you want to make them play in the half court, it's a little bit tougher if the ball is outside of Courtney Vandersloot's hands. So the first thing is try to get the ball out of her hands. High defensive lines, get Skylar Diggins-Smith or even Sophie Cunningham to force the ball out of her hand into someone else's and let them make the play. Kalia Copper is still very good. Don't sleep on her. but I'd rather have the ball in her hands than have the ball in Vandersloot, because she is the only woman in the NBA in WNBA to shoot in the playoffs 10 points, 10 steals, 10 assists, 5 steals, and no turnovers. And that was in game 1. So you got to be very careful about Courtney Vandersloot. Try to keep her quiet, try to keep her silent, and if you can do that, Phoenix can come through. Whereas on the other end, keep Brittany Griner quiet. Dolson and Azurá Stevens have a work cut out for them. James Wade said she told them that they were going to have their work cut out them with either Cambage or Griner. So they need to keep working and keep doing. Ideally, do what Bill Laimbeer tried to do with the Aces. Force Griner up the court. So force her into that pick and roll. Force her to get the ball. So don't switch as Chicago. Go through, try to break through the screen. Keep the two bigs on each other. And if Griner gets the ball in the elbow, hands up in the air, if she swings that one, you could say it's a favorite shot of hers. If she swings that one, that's fine. But you don't want her in 5 feet within the basket. You don't want her in the low block. If she gets the ball in the low block, it's over. You'd rather have her do her maneuvers further away from the basket. That's the only way you can try to win it. Force to keep the ball in that perimeter. If Diana Taurasi's shooting hot, she's shooting hot. It will try calm down, but essentially that's how you kind of need to play that game. If you keep Brittany Griner cool, the others can't. It kind of like Phoenix can't get their offense going, because in times where their shooting's not great, they want to go to Brittany Griner, and if she's not good, then they're just shooting randomly in the half court, and it kind of becomes stagnant. Brittany Griner is really important for them to move the ball and everything else, depending on what defense she gets. So if she comes up, gets the ball, single coverage, she's going to try and go over. If it's high up on the key, that's fine. If it's lower on that 5, closer to the basket, you're in trouble, because she's going to score all the time. So it's things like that Chicago need to consider. But we're ready for game 3 on Friday night. It's going to be incredible. Chicago, if I was you, close it out. Try to close it out at home, win the next 2 games. You are very capable of doing that. The last time you came up against the Lynx, they swept you. It's time for you guys to try and take it away. One of the only few underdog stories that are in professional sports, a team that was 500 making it into the finals. It doesn't happen that often, and so we're watching something amazing, and I hope that both teams give us a good basketball. If it goes to game 5, well, it's good for the rest of us. If it goes to game 4, then well done to Chicago Sky, because they'll have won it, or even Phoenix, because they can win 2 in a row and take it away. But it's a really good matchup. Really do enjoy it. Do catch it on the WNBA League Pass for those outside of the US, but obviously it's on ABC and all these different channels in the US. So do enjoy that. Thank you very much again. Enjoy the games. We'll be back after game 4. I'll be back on Monday to discuss game 4 and prepare for game 5. But thank you very much from myself, Mpho Mukrani, at the Ball and All podcast. Thank you very much for joining and listening. We're also available on Anchor Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. So look out for Ball and All. If you search for Ball and All, you find it. But we'll be back. Enjoy game 3 and game 4, and we'll be back later on to discuss what happened in the WNBA. And then we'll talk NBA stuff next week. We've got 30 weeks of NBA to go, so we've got a long way to go in this basketball season, but a really, really good stories to come out there. But first, we focus on WNBA. Thank you very much for the support. Thank you very much, and have a good evening and enjoy the basketball. From myself, Mpho Mukrani, le sale kakagiso.